Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Tendo podcast. Today we have a very special guest in Adammmski, aka Adam from the Tendo mod crew. How are you doing today, Adam? What's going on?
I am good. I'm good. I'm great. I am fantastic. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to hear it. So Adam, what we usually do on this show, as you already know, because we tried to record this once already and I accidentally didn't record Adam's audio. And I know how much everyone loves listening to me, but there was too much silence on the other side. So, Adam, when did you discover video gaming / video games, and what's the first game you remember playing?
Must have been about 7. So we're looking about 1999 to 2000. Started off on the old retro Mario, Super Mario World. Then sort of moving on to Banjo-Kazooie, massive Banjo fan, and then pretty much every platformer from there and every Mario game from there as well.
Awesome. So you've always had an affiliation for platformers. Would I be right in saying that? So
yeah, I prefer more retro ones. Sorry.
Yeah, you're not a first-person shooter type guy, or can you be?
I can. I do play COD. You know, I'm not fantastic at it like you are, but I do play it.
I'm not good. I'm only okay.
Oh, you're better than me. Everyone's better than me, though. Not fairness.
What platforms do you love?
Yeah, that's it. I do prefer a story-driven game.
And Tetris.
And I am extremely cracked in Tetris. Almost unbeaten.
Tetris is your game, right?
Indeed.
Everyone's got their game, and well, I haven't, but like Tetris is yours for sure.
Mario's your game.
I'm only okay. Let's talk about some of the hot topics at the minute. Hot tub streaming. What are your thoughts, Adam?
Who gives a shit? It's my first thought. I mean, it's not my personal cup of tea. You know, I don't see the appeal in it, but I would never turn around and say to anyone, you shouldn't do this or you can't do this. And I know there's a lot of controversy with some people on Twitter, mostly some people that you butted head with yourself, saying that it sexualizes people and that the platform is consistent of some very young members. And yes, they are correct. There are some young people on the platform, but Twitch's TOS is so strict. I cannot see the sexualization into that. And I don't see what the problem is with it. You know, no one's being forced to do these things. No one's forced to do a hot tub stream, but no one's also forced to watch it. So if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. You don't need to comment on it. Yeah. You don't need to judge people. You know, it's and I don't want to tarnish this with the same brush because it's not the case at all. But if we look at sex work, for example, if it's not your cup of tea, fine. If it is someone's cup of tea, also fine. You know, it's different strokes for different folks. We don't need to start judging people on the decisions they make in life because there's nobody in this planet that is squeaky clean. Yeah.
So what you were alluding to there about the people I butted heads with that, their problem is that their argument is that anecdotally they are saying that they are having more trouble with trolls as a result of this. Obviously, personally, I don't believe that. Secondly, they couldn't give me any evidence of that whatsoever. Only a personal view. I think, to be honest, in my opinion, and this is pure opinion, and that's if somebody wants to go and troll hot tub streamers or sexualize the hot tub streamers, from what I've seen, they get blocked anyway, even from the hot tub streams. If they're using explicit sexual language, they are removed from there anyway. So they don't put up with
it.
And the other thing is, if there's somebody going in there, and let's assume they are an adult or, you know, in their late teens, mid-teens, whatever, if they are going around sexualizing women simply because they've seen a hot tub stream, then the problem is, one, with the individual who's doing it, and two, is a much bigger problem than it's going to be solved by taking away a hot tub stream.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. It's just that just because a lady or even a gentleman, let's not
or somebody non-binary,
not different. If you've got a lady or a gentleman and they stream regularly, they stream games, if they do a hot tub stream and let's say, for example, if a male was, his shoulders were bare, or a lady was wearing something, a bikini or a swimsuit, for example, that had her shoulders bare, if you see the sexualization to that, that is on you. That is on the viewer. That is not on them.
Yeah.
And for those that are saying, but it can really warp young children and we need to protect the kids. No, a streamer is not a parent. They're not a parent, they're not a counsellor, and they're not an object.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people just need to sort of take away that responsibility from somebody who chooses to stream and chooses to sort of be a staple holder of a platform, is that whilst they're there maybe to be like to inspire, they're not there to teach. I would never ever expect life lessons for young children to come from a streamer. That's something that your parents should be doing, or I don't know, the school system from around the world, wherever you may be. And I think it's one of the issues where I think not just Twitch, but with social media in general, is that everybody's got a phone and or a laptop and access to a social media account, which sort of gives everybody a voice.
Absolutely,
but with no accountability for their actions or their words.
And
that
on the back
is really big.
And on the back of that as well, I guess if you've got access to Twitch, you've got most kids who have got access to Twitch, and but they're supposed to be 13 plus. With parental consent. They've got access to probably, most of them I'd say, probably got access to all the internet. How astute their mum and dads are at using blockers and stuff like that. The kids are clever and they know better than their parents, and they'll find a way around it anyway. So like that censorship thing has gone a long time ago with the birth of the internet and the rise of the internet. And my opinion would be that I guess it's more about trying to educate the kids to know that these things exist in the first place, obviously, because denying it won't help anybody. And just, I guess, letting the kids know, and this is very difficult to talk about from my perspective because I'm not a parent, letting the kids know that not everybody is the same, and one person's voice is not everybody's voice, one woman's voice is not everyone's, one man's, somebody who's gay doesn't have the voice for everyone else. Just, to keep these things that are opinions and not fact or behaviors contained to a single person. I guess that would be the only kind of education you would do, but the trolls will always exist. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I agree.
So you're planning on setting up a stream soon as Adammmski. What are your?
I am indeed.
What are your thoughts on trolls, or how you perhaps intend to deal with trolls? Have you thought along those lines yet?
Yes and no. So mostly no. I'm a kind of torn man with sort of the dynamic of the stream, and the reason is because I'm like you. As much as I love to F and bland and swear all the time, which I do, anyone that has been in any sort of conversation with me will know that all I do is call people the C word multiple times in a sentence.
Courteous.
Yeah, that's the word. I don't like the idea of having a community where they F and bland all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, that's not to say it's not I don't want it to be like these are rules, and if you don't follow these rules, that's it, you're banned.
Yeah.
But I also want people to show a little constraint. I mean, you know, if you're F and bland all the time in Twitch, it takes the fun out of it, and that's coming from me. And if anybody see me as a viewer, they know that I am I toe the line multiple times. I cross the line. Sometimes I turn back and I also snort that line as well. Um, but I don't I don't like the idea of having people effing blinded and calling each other names. Banter's fine,
Yes.
and suggestive comments. I think things are more funny when they are suggestive.
Yeah.
It sort of opens up the people's imagination. I think it's just a lot more humour in it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that sort of dynamic with the trolls, I think I have a good eye for trolls.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been one of your mods for quite a short time. I think we're looking about only a couple of weeks actually. There's a couple in there that a couple of viewers that I've sort of been internally thought to myself, right, there don't seem like a genuine viewer. They're just there to troll, to be nasty, make unnecessary comments. So that's both like in your streams and on the Discord as well.
Yes.
But so I think I've got a good eye. I plan on getting some amazing mods. The question hasn't been asked just yet, but I will be sourcing them. I have a couple of ideas, a couple of people actually that I would like to ask, but that'll come in time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep my community friendly, hopefully. Hopefully.
On the back of that, obviously, as a gay man, you have options to you with regards to how you promote the stream and how tightly you link your sexuality to the stream, because that's obviously a big thing on Twitch, and something that I've been curious about, being a straight man, of course, because I don't know what that's like to be gay. So you see quite a few streams that make a point of being LGBTQIA plus friendly, which I think is absolutely fine, like absolutely fine. And there's of course a tag for that if you want to. I'm not really sure, you know, what the general consensus is on who can use the tag, whether it's supposed to be just if you are yourself within that community, or whether you are welcoming to people from that community. But what do you think about the tag, and what do you think about using the stream as a platform to either advocate rights or to pass it as a safe space, if you like?
I personally will not be using the tag, and the reason for that is my view of the tag is that it continues the divide. I think the issue is that it's fantastic that people have this opportunity to put these tags on themselves, and to really welcome people in the community. But in the long run, and if you look at a bigger picture of things, I don't think it does much to help. And the reasons for that is that we, as a gay person, I believe in equality for everyone, you know, and that's sort of like a blanket equality, gender, race, ethnicity, gender and sexuality, blah, blah, blah. And I think having these tags, it cheapens it, because it continues a divide, it continues a separation, and it puts us into pigeonholes. I can understand why people do it, and I fully respect people that do that. It's not for me. I think it's important for us to be a streamer first, then a gay man.
Yes.
Or rather than being a gay man, then a streamer.
Yeah.
You know, if the first thing that if you're browsing Twitch and you just want to watch someone or whatever, and the first thing you come across is someone, and the first thing you find out about them is a gay. And that's sort of, for me, I just don't like that idea. It's I don't want to know your sexuality before meeting you. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with that. And again, I can't speak on behalf of anybody or any part of that community, the LGBTQIA plus community. But see, and I mean, obviously, I can sit here and say it doesn't matter, and it doesn't. It doesn't matter to me. And I've never picked a streamer on the back of their sexuality ever.
No.
Ever.
I haven't either.
Ever. And I've never been bothered, and I've never asked people, because because I don't care. I that's the point.
Yeah.
I do not care. I try to not be ignorant about any issues that surround being in a minority, but at the same time, I don't care that much that, you know, I need to ask the question, or I need to know, because it's kind of weird, because you couldn't go into a new job or meet somebody and go, oh, how'd you do? I'm gay. Sure. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm trying not to talk to you, but I'm sort of asking the question. I don't think you'd do that, would you? I didn't like, oh, I'm Adam, I'm gay. Like, that's why it's kind of like, you know, when you get to know somebody, or you talk about your life, then of course, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I don't see, you know, if you are trying to meet a friend, say, or you're getting to know somebody as a friend in that kind of relationship, it shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter. So
precisely,
you'd care more about their personality and their traits than whether they were gay or not, because what does that matter? Absolutely.
And I think some elements of society, most of it is actually online, that some people are so obsessed with what hole you want to sleep in, or what hole you want to put it in, or what hole you don't want to put it in, and it's almost creepy. It's, you know, I don't really give a crap of what you do with your penis, or somebody does with their penis or their vagina. That's none of my business. I don't care.
No.
And I think everybody should sort of have that mentality as well. You know, it's who gives a crap.
Yeah.
You know,
and I see it. I feel like I see it on both sides as well. You get people who get really angered by people who are gay still, you know, or a lesbian, and then you get people who are angered by people who are trans or whatever. Yeah. And you see it, we know it exists, and I blanket, we know it exists. You can never deny that. And then also, I feel like I see people from the LGBTQIA plus community who almost want to keep it exclusive, you know, want to keep themselves and their company exclusive, whilst trying to be an advocate for equality. And that's where it starts to get difficult for me, because, and like, I agree with you, Adam, I think this is mainly online. I genuinely believe that, and from my own experiences, i.e. meeting one of my best friends who I've known for 26 years, 27 years now, going out with him to clubs, bars, or just meeting his friends from the LGBT community. And I found that most of them are not militant about what you think or do. Most, you know, they all want equality, and they'd all be outspoken for the equal rights and equality. But it's very different. That community that I've met tangibly in person is very different to the people that a lot of the people that I've met online. And again, not everybody online, of course, but it just feels like it's one of those things again, where it's, oh, you know, online people are less likely to say things that they would say or do in person. But I honestly believe the people I've met have been completely open and honest with me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I look at people like that who, like you said, most people are online, probably using Twitter, and it's alarming, really, about how forceful and proactive they are in their determination to keep certain things just for the LGBTQ community. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of that coin, they're the first type of person that would complain if they did not get any of the same rights or the same equality that a straight person would have.
Yeah.
They're the first person to complain, but yet they're on the other side of the coin, they want to keep some things gay.
Yeah.
or something's lesbian, or something just exclusive for them communities. And it's not right. In my opinion, it's going to be a harsh word, and some people are going to probably, this is going to trigger people, but I look at it and it's a form of terrorism. And not in the sense of obviously you're causing physical harm to people.
Oh, yeah, no, but there's...
You cause physical harm to people's minds.
Yeah.
Because it's such a... They're so determined to be forward-thinking that they don't realise they're 20 miles behind you.
Yeah.
Going in the completely opposite direction. Because they're just continuing the segregation, the perpetuating the stereotypes, and they're wondering why we have to have these type of conversations, and why they are continued looked differently to a straight person. It's because they continually make it worse. And I always think the best thing to sort of tackle these type of issues is to stop talking about it, stop making it out to be a deal.
Yes.
And whilst it is a deal, of course, it's to stop perpetuating it, you know. Pay it no mind.
It's
and
yeah. I'd be inclined to agree. Or certainly if we're going to talk about it, we need to be a bit more open and listening to what people have to say. You know, even the most narrow-minded of people, you know, they can be reasoned with. They can. It's not easy, but they can. But if you just shout things that they actually aren't, and they may be narrow-minded, but they may not actually be horrible people, you know? They may not actually wish any harm, but the minute that somebody asks a question or suggests that somebody might feel a different way, it seems like it's like, no, it's just this, and this is what you have to do, and this is how you have to address me and my community. But so a couple of podcasts ago, I had some issues. Well, actually, no, I didn't have any issues. I recorded a podcast with somebody called Tubby Tub. The podcast was recorded. I spoke to him afterwards. He was happy with it. Everything was fine. And then days later, the podcast was suddenly not fine on the back of friends from the community, as he put it, had watched it and said a few things, and he felt like he hadn't represented his community properly. So he asked me to remove it. I asked him why. He didn't really want to. He didn't really want to tell me why. But then he gave me a list of reasons that other people had told him within the community not. And he said he agreed with some of them, right? But they were not his reasons. So I didn't take it down because I thought, no, doesn't seem right to me. I was very clear that we were going to be talking about sensitive issues in the LGBTQ world. And obviously, I told him that we didn't have to talk about that as well. I said it didn't need to be about that, the podcast. And I was bombarded with all sorts of stuff. That was supposedly wrong that I said or did. And interestingly, some of these things, like I mentioned, there was around 96 pronouns. And that the problem, I believe, with having that many pronouns is, you know, nobody's ever going to remember that many pronouns. And they simply wouldn't be using them enough in the real world to warrant remembering them, you know, because whether people like it or not, you can be as accommodating for people as you like, but everybody's still got their own lives to live. You know, you might believe that just because somebody's white and lives in the Western world that their life is a bunch of roses, but unfortunately for most people that is not the case. Like, that is not the case, and your life can be pretty shit. Your life can be pretty shit whatever color you are, or whatever your sexual preference is. Your life can be pretty shit. Does it make things easier having to open up to people about your sexuality? No, absolutely not. But I was very surprised that somebody was so open, seemed so happy about something, and then went away and was convinced by other people that what they'd said was wrong, even though they are part of that community themselves. And the repeated thing that was on there as well was, he does, as in talking about me, he does not speak for this community, despite me saying that so many times on the podcast, so many times. But then I'm like, well, one person doesn't speak for the whole community anyway. Like, they're assuming that their point of view is right. But I know, Adam, you don't, I don't speak for you, but I know you have a lot of different views to whoever it was that was saying this to me, because they were faceless, of course. They put no face, they put no name to themselves or face to themselves, of course. You know, so I found it difficult to take seriously anyway. But if you're gonna, if you, I said there's around 96 pronouns, and that's right. They were wrong. They were right. They said, well, they were right in saying I was wrong. There's actually more. They believed that there was far less than that, and it was a something made up by the right wing media, which is complete bullshit. You can go on so many LGBTQIA plus friendly sites in very lazy, quick Google searches, and they will tell you, there's pronouns that are like she and je, and things that are just completely unnecessary and don't do anything but be a choice for people. Be a choice after, because there are enough pronouns for most people's sexual preferences within reason, and then it becomes a part where, well, this pronoun is the same as this, but you can choose which one you use. Well, then what's the point in having a pronoun? I thought the idea of the pronoun, which is what it is that it gives you your sexual preference, and that's you and only you. And then if you can have another pronoun as well, then what does that mean?
Exactly. I think you're failing that. Yeah.
What do you think on this though, Adam? Because obviously you're a gay man, but so it's you know, you're not non-binary, you're not trans, but again, you are part of the community, and people keep saying to me, you know, you can't speak, but you are in that community, Adam. So what do you think?
Right. So how I'm going to tackle that question, I'm going to break it down.
Okay.
So going back to the beginning about this podcast in particular, I know all about the situation. I've also watched the podcast and done my small investigation of the individual involved. I would ask that person, if you are listening to this podcast, firstly, get a grip. Second of all, if you want to have a discussion about it, you can find me on Twitter. I'm a gay man. But if you think that these opinions are wrong, you are more than welcome to talk to me yourself. You're welcome to, and you're encouraged to actually consider I'm sat here on this platform talking about you. So have this opportunity to talk to me as well. Second of all, I think this individual was gaslighted in quite a few ways into pressuring you to delete the podcast. And I think he was gaslighted in a way because it didn't, his community, he was expecting his community to be really proud of him for speaking up for the LGBT community. But naturally, as you said, the reception for him wasn't that great. So I think he's used every excuse in the book to try and get it taken down. And I think all these comments in regards to how you don't speak for the community and that the 96 pronouns thing is wrong, that comes from miseducation on their part. And basically their opinion, not their opinion, but these facts that they're trying to relate to you are not really facts.
Exactly.
They're just baseless accusations because they don't like what they heard. And it comes from echo chambers, which I know is probably going to come up at some point in this conversations, where you've got a group of people relaying the same information over and over to each other, to the point where it becomes toxic, to the point where no other opinion matters because they're so hell-bent on their view. And it's wrong. And this individual in question, I did some basic research on social media, Twitter, and I found that all of his tweets, or the majority of his tweets, including his Twitter bio, was LGBT and proud, LGBT and this and that. You know, really, from the vibe I got from that, he was really someone who was doing his best to represent the LGBT community in the Twitch format. Good for him. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You do you, bro. But when you're given a platform on a podcast to talk about the LGBT community and have these conversations, and yeah, you know, some people live a sheltered life. Some of these conversations might be quite difficult for them to have. Some of these conversations might be completely new to some people, particularly those who not necessarily uneducated, but miseducated.
Yes.
So people that haven't got much experience, you know, but he came across on that podcast as very eloquent. I thought he delivered his points quite well. Yeah, in terms of what he was talking about, I didn't walk away from. Well, I'd say walk away. I didn't metaphorically walk away from that thinking, you did a poor job representing yourself there, because I did. I think it was fantastic. He, did what he did. So I was surprised, really, about the reasons as to why he wanted it removed, and it seems like it stemmed from his friends or his community. Yes. And I would ask this person individual to really look at reflection on that, because that's not right. And it's not okay. And it really, really does not a disservice to LGBTQ Twitch streamers or LGBTQ people that are on this platform, that have this opportunity to represent, where they can't even share an opinion without some people kicking off and saying that's not the right opinion. Because you and I both know, and a lot of other people know as well, that it does not take much to find any real information about the LGBT community. A quick Google search and you'll find out every single pronoun that's been created. You'll find them there on Google from very trusted, very proactive LGBT community websites. Pink News, for example. Oh My God blog. And there's another one which is a rude word, so I'm not going to say it. You will find. I'll tell you after. Okay. You will find these pronouns. You will find all these facts. You will find out all the information on there, and so I don't understand why they would really come at you for this. I think it's such a non-issue when all you was doing in your side of things was asking the questions. You was asking the questions. You were asking him to describe his experience. But they came for you and said, like, you don't speak for the community. You were a straight man. Okay, who gives a shit? But you was asking him.
I was asking him, and that was why. Exactly. And I put to him thoughts and feelings that I'd seen from people, and the things that I stated were nothing to do with me. I stated them. But what I found interesting was that they went through a bunch of things. I think there was like 9 to 11 sort of things that were listed. And they were mostly actually facts. The pronoun thing. They were unhappy that I'd spoken about trans suicide without somebody from the trans community being there. But it's literally just facts. It's literally just facts that I said, because we know, and this is why I spoke about it, because we know that there's a real big problem with suicide in the trans community, a real big problem.
Absolutely.
And honestly, like, I can say with my hand on my heart, that breaks my heart, because to think that somebody would be so uncomfortable that they can't, it's horrible. It's a horrible thought. So I'm asking these questions because I know that's a fact, right? There's statistics for it. You can't argue it. It's a fact. And these are the things I'm getting chastised for. It'd be like, it's almost like they really fear the factual information because it doesn't follow their rhetoric, and
absolutely
that's how it feels. And then I'm like, there's so many people who are just following a prolific few people on Twitter. They will listen to anything they say without question. And it worries me so much. And this happens across the board in different communities for whatever reason. You know, even something as insignificant in comparison as like a gaming community. This happens everywhere, right? I'm not saying it doesn't. But this is so serious. Like, it's so serious.
It's literally life and death.
Yeah. And to think like, to have that put across to me as if that I simply didn't care because I'd mentioned it without a trans person being there. How do they think I found out this information? Like, I educate myself on these things. I pride myself on educating myself on these things and these issues.
Yeah.
So, and they're actually, as for in terms of me and my life, they are nothing to do with me. So I could just say, hey, do you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to read up about it. I'll just live in ignorance. And then where are we? But it kind of feels like there must be so many people, although this will never be me, that have tried to ask questions and just been turned away, and they think, do you know what? Well, fuck it. I'm not going to bother. Yeah.
Do you know what? I think you've probably said you've said it in such a point where, and is the fact that I'll use the trans suicide for example because it's on topic. That it's not. I'm trying to think of the right words to say this. Communication is so important for everyone, particularly these days because life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Everybody has their shit. Some people have more shit than others, but everybody goes through shit. And for someone to say to you, you cannot talk about trans suicides because there isn't a trans person there, that is so unbelievably problematic, so unbelievably wrong on so many different levels. It's unreal. And I am hoping this person, or the person that just did say this, is watching this. And I'd hope that person has the balls to actually talk to me about this. I put myself out there. Talk to me about this. If you truly believe that, if you truly believe that a straight man cannot talk about trans people, you'll find me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You'll find me in Discord. You'll find me in Twitch. Talk to me about it. Explain your reasons, because that is so problematic. Since when is it okay for anyone to say things like that? Do you know? We live in a society. Life is fucking hard enough how it is without saying to people you can't talk about these topics because you're not involved in them. Do you know what's wrong with raising awareness? What's wrong with raising raising the question?
I thought that was the idea. Now, as you know, we've come a long way with male suicide awareness. It's if you think about the awareness now compared to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it's out there, and the statistics are out there as well. Like three quarters of suicides are men.
That's it. You'll never see anyone on Twitter saying, "Oh, you cannot talk about male suicide because you are not a man."
Yeah,
you will never see that on Twitter.
No.
I will die on that hill. But for some people to turn around and say you cannot talk about trans suicide because you are not trans.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
And and like I say, the statistics are horrible. They really are.
Yeah,
it's bad enough.
Really
bad enough anyway. And then the trans community, it's like honestly, it's so gut wrenching. To see
really
that.
Is. And I look at this. I think everybody knows I've battled long-term mental health problems. Ranging far and wide, and I've been in that position too, where I've almost done it, tried to do it, blah blah blah, and for someone to say things like that you cannot raise awareness for such an insignificant reason, it feels like I'm where 50 years ago.
Yeah,
it's so backwards, it's so wrong, and I know I've repeated myself 50 times, but really actually has pissed me off.
Yeah, but
it's
what's so interesting is that it feels like what used to be a liberal way of thinking when I was a kid, and I always considered myself liberal, is completely gone. And people who consider themselves liberal now are incredibly militant and far less open to proper conversation, which is not what it used to be. And we need balance in the world, right? I'm nowhere near. I don't choose a political class or anything like that, because there's nobody I feel that comes close to representing my thoughts or views, right?
Yeah.
I'm never going to go towards any kind of far-right party. That would never happen, right? That's beyond. I wouldn't go for a right party either, you know, but certainly not the far-right.
Yeah.
But I've always had it in my head as well. So in the UK, we have Labour on the left, supposedly. And then, well, I mean, we've had Labour on the extreme left, and now we've got Labour who are, I don't know what they are now.
I don't even know what they are.
I don't think they know. They didn't know what they haven't known what they were for a long time. But anyway, am I going to sit? There's plenty of people I don't like, and like we spoke about Piers Morgan saying stuff on that stuff, on, you know, prolific presenter and TV interviewer, who I hate some of the stuff that he says, and him as, you know, his personality, just like some of the things that the Conservative Party will come out with. But could I turn around and say that I can't agree with anything that those people would ever say and just say, well, that's it? No, of course I can't. Of course I can't say that.
Yeah.
But it feels like people just want to choose and then just completely stick to their guns, and there's no wiggle room at all, and there's no talking, and that's the most dangerous thing. And this is why we need the balance of people who are more to the right and people who are more to the left, because then we can talk. But when it comes at the extreme end, when it becomes at the extreme ends of things, it's just complete polarization instead of sort of being somewhere in between and working it out. And the more we talk about it, the more things we work out and the more things we see from each other's perspective. But if I wanted to actually get somebody on here, or any kind of open platform for discussion, unedited, I could try, and I know it won't happen. It won't happen.
Yeah.
They won't do it. They won't talk with me. They won't debate with me. They're not interested.
Exactly. They'll just try and get their point across, and they won't listen to any counter arguments. They won't listen to reason. They won't listen to any evidence. And I agree with what you said about being sort of the left or right, if you look at it from a political point of view.
Yeah.
But I look at it from a circle. So if you imagine a circle and you've got left and right on either side, so hands in the camera. Some people that are so far left, they end up going round.
Yes.
And the far right. But the far right with their far left views.
Yes.
And vice versa, other way.
Yes.
And that's where it becomes militant. And that's why I used the word terrorism before, because it's so problematic. And it is an extreme word to use, naturally, you know. But you've got to look at the gravity of the situation where there's people's lives on the line, people's freedoms. And it is so unbelievably problematic. And it's not going to solve itself. It's only going to solve itself through education, and it's just a long, long, long hill to climb.
Yes, and
so many obstacles.
Yeah, I really like that analogy. I really, really like that analogy.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of it that way before, but I completely agree with that. And because what was traditionally liberal was freedom of speech was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah,
one of the biggest ones. And they're passing laws in Canada to say that, you know, deliberately calling somebody by the wrong pronoun, well, it's passed, is you could get fined for it, and it's seen as a hate crime. Now, would I want to try and embarrass somebody or belittle somebody by calling them something? No, I wouldn't. But I also think that any kind of anything against complete freedom of speech is incredibly dangerous, because then we do lose the power to talk completely.
Absolutely.
I might not agree with the things you say, but I would defend your right to say them as a free person who can say what they like. I mean, that happened in Canada. I mean, that's not going to happen in the States. It hasn't happened here. It's more likely to happen here. No. But I can't see it. Oh, well, it worries me so much. Like, so much. It's like, would I think somebody's a shitty person for consistently not calling somebody what they want to be called? Yes, I would. I think they're a shitty person. Do I think they should be punished by law? No. You should.
Yeah, precisely. You know, when you look at prison, you don't think of Pete the Peter and
Pete the Peter.
you know, Terry the terrorist sharing a cell with Mickey the mislabeler.
You did that at the top of your head, didn't you?
I did. It took a second. But it's not an offence.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about Canada, apart from the fact that our dear lovely Christie's from there. But it's backwards.
Yeah,
and it's what I said about things becoming from far left to far right in the script like that, because it's alarming.
Yeah.
About the freedom of speech as well. If you look at sort of the Trump 2020 and the 2016 campaigns, one of the big things that he was sort of going on about and banging on about was freedom of speech.
Yes.
So if that was from a far left, Trump is obviously, he's a Republican, it's far right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know much about American politics, but I'm presuming Republicans.
Yeah, that's right.
He's obviously the far right, so it swings back around upon itself, and so obviously it's so problematic.
Another thing, and this goes back to the debate thing, is so I saw an article about Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes,
she's obviously running for governor of California.
Yes,
which is a massive step. Like, it's a huge step in the trans world, and she's been incredibly brave. Incredibly brave.
Absolutely.
There's no arguing.
No.
Obviously,
regardless of what you think about the Kardashians,
that
side of things,
you cannot deny that. It's absolutely massive. It's absolutely massive, because there's been very few people.
Deny that Caitlyn Jenner has gone through the absolute some of the toughest things that human could do.
Everything, without a doubt. Now, she's getting a backlash for saying that, but at the same time, she's getting a backlash for saying that trans women shouldn't be competing with women who are assigned that gender at birth.
Yeah.
From a fairness and competitive point of view.
Yeah.
My opinion on that is, I don't believe it's fair. So, like, for example, if you look at men's tennis and how fast a man serves, the average man in professional tennis serves compared to the woman, it wouldn't even be a contest. It wouldn't even come close, right? So, would you want to take away overnight the likes of Venus and Serena, the likes of Steffi Graf, the likes of these incredible women who had done incredible things, and push through an era that was always male dominated to get tennis to a point where, yes, it's not as big as the men's game, but it's certainly much bigger than it ever was. We are seeing that in football. A couple of years ago, we had the Women's World Cup, and I was working in essentially a working man's club behind the bar, and you had some of the most narrow-minded people that I know, not necessarily bad people, but narrow-minded people I know, watching women's football, who probably 10 years ago wouldn't have given it the time of day, right?
Yeah.
And that's because these women have worked incredibly hard, and people have worked incredibly hard to get to this point. And obviously, if you get a trans woman come in, it becomes very difficult for these women who are assigned that gender at birth. Now, to me, that doesn't sound fair, right? But when the people who are speaking out against Caitlyn Jenner, there's no reason or rhyme for it. It's just, you're wrong and it's transphobic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
And I don't know. I don't know, because I think Caitlyn Jenner has bravely, and I think she knew that she would get back if I say this, and it is an unpopular thing to talk about, because naturally whenever you mention that a trans person can't do something, or any person that can't do something,
yes, of course,
backlash is going to ensure. And but you got to look at things from a biological facts. Men and women are born in the same bodies, but with two chemical differences, and that's testosterone and estrogen. And whilst I don't know much about science, I'm not a scientist. cancel me for this
Yeah.
if I get it wrong. You know, I don't understand. I'm not familiar with the process of gender dysphoria and all on this type of stuff. But if you have someone who's either transition or fully completed the transition, whilst they may have similar chemical internal balances, such as a trans woman having more estrogen, there is still going to be testosterone there, and there is going to be a little, very minor, but that minor, it causes someone harm. If you look at this on sports like rugby, for example, or American football, MMA, or even wrestling, it can be potentially dangerous because the force of that could harm someone. You know, let's say, for example, Ronda Rousey, who's obviously a biological woman, she's could beat the shit out of you and steal your lunch money.
Yeah,
and a lot of people like myself would welcome it. You know, and what she's done for that sport is she's literally built it up from judo, strike force, amateur MMA, MMA. She was the first ever. Was it welterweight or was it bantamweight?
I don't know her weight, but yes.
Yeah, she was the first ever champion, and she's the first female inducted in the UFC Hall of Fame. And what she did for that sport is fantastic. So if you look at it from a different point of view, having a trans person sort of doing that, who would you put in with? Would you put a trans woman in with a male, or would you put a trans woman in with a female? Or would you have to say, I'm sorry, but you cannot participate in this sport? Do you know, because it is a really tough topic, and it is. There's no right or wrong answer, if I'm being truthful. But I do agree with you, and I do agree with Caitlyn Jenner, and not to shun anyone, not to segregate anyone, but on the safety of everybody involved. Yeah, that is a right thing to do. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, but it's also the right thing to do.
And obviously, Caitlyn Jenner speaks as a decathlon gold medal
Olympian.
Yeah. So she knows better than anyone, you know, what it takes and the differences within the sport. But I just feel like, well, you know, would it upset me? Not really, because again, it's one of those things. What's it got to do with me? But I'd feel it'd be hard on the women of the sport. The women who are assigned that gender at birth. And also, honestly, I think it would take away all the hard works that have been done, as we know. So quick stats. One study, they took 100 random men, completely at random, 100 random women, adult men, completely at random, to throw a baseball side by side. So each side by side, one at a time, was random. 97 men threw the ball harder. Right? To argue now, of course, that doesn't mean a single woman can't be stronger than a man, because obviously in that instance 3 times they were. And certainly, like you say, if I come across Ronda Rousey and, she spilt my beer, she's knocked into me on the dance floor and spilt my beer, I'm probably not going to go and pick a fight with her, because I'd have my ass whooped, right? I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. Absolutely. Would Ronda Rousey wipe the floor with me? Yeah, of course, absolutely, without a doubt, right? So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, people who argue that there's no difference, that annoys me, for one. And I know not a lot of people do that, but there are still some that do, believe it or not.
Yeah, they are.
Just arguing that there are no differences is the worst. It's just the worst thing I've ever heard. It's one of the stupidest things you could ever say or argue.
It's so ridiculous why people say that, because you would never look at someone supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and say there is no concernable difference between a black person and a white person. Yes, of course there's a difference, and there's a reason why Black Lives Matter, this movement, is in existence.
Exactly.
So you've got those people that are saying things like that need to look at the bigger picture.
And
that.
And the other thing is I feel like we've we've come to a point where we don't embrace our differences sometimes as men and women as well, because it's like this thing with the toxic masculinity. Now, I hate that phrase. I hate it. Now, Can you say bad things to kids, boys, men? Yes, of course you can. So you, like, boys don't cry. It's a stupid thing to say. But I know many women who grew up with their mothers telling them that they needed to get on and they needed to save face. So that behavior is not inherently masculine.
Yeah.
That's, you know, I dislike these phrases, and it's like saying, well, you know, it sort of says that being masculine is in itself is kind of toxic, where that's not really the case. I don't really understand that. But again, if you try and sort of give facts, or you say, well, hang on, these behaviors are just toxic people, right? These behaviors are toxic people. We're different, and we can celebrate being masculine in certain ways and feminine in certain ways. I know a lot of my female friends who are artists, they love to capture the difference in physical form of the male and female bodies, and the expressions of that, they absolutely love that.
Absolutely.
And it's sort of, there's a real problem with people attacking men at the minute, like a real problem with it. Do men do some terrible things? Yes. Are they more likely to end up in prison? Yes, because they're more aggressive. It's a personality trait. Men are more aggressive. The split's about 60-40, men, women, but at the most aggressive end, the top 5%, the most aggressive are almost always men. They are. It's a trait. It's a trait, and that it's not a good trait. But also, being aggressive is not just a masculine trait, because women can be aggressive as well.
Yes, absolutely. I work in a pub, so yes, I know just as much. You know, and it's also on the back of that, it's also masculine presumed that men are the only ones that sort of are sexually harassment.
Yeah.
If I had £1 every time I was groped and grabbed, today I would have earned about 25 quid.
Yeah.
And I would have earned a lot more yesterday and a lot more the day before. It's unreal. And whilst I can, to a degree, shake it off, it's not okay, you know. And people have to understand that just because you're a man or just because you're a woman, you still have these traits. You still have this right or wrong. You don't get away with it because you're a woman. You don't get away with it because you're a man. Yeah. You know, your social norms exist for a reason. Yeah.
And I think the thing is, because there is a physical difference in between most men and women, that obviously it's probably going to be scarier for a woman if it happens, because if it goes further, they could struggle to resist. And of course, I see it from that point of view. But I think that I can remember the first time that I was touched inappropriately, and it was by a girl who was a year older than me at school when I was about 12. And then it was, hey, yeah. And it was like, I didn't think much of it at the time. Do you know what? I've only just thought about it recently, and it's not something that I feel was something terrible or whatever. Yeah. Now, and obviously that's going to be a lot more intimidating for a woman if. Yeah. But to suggest that it doesn't happen, is absolutely ridiculous. And since then, in clubs, I have never, not once, gone anywhere near touching a woman inappropriately ever,
because a normal person wouldn't do that.
Exactly, and most men don't do that, and most women don't do that.
But some men do that, and some women do that, and
they do.
It's that minority. Yeah. That people need to focus on. And you know, if looking at the bigger picture, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. If we talk about the not all men sort of approach that Twitter's seen lately in regards to women walking alone at night and attacks happening on females. Yes. I fully support where they're saying that although not all men are violent, aggressive,
Yes.
Sexual deviants, but they have to be cautious of all men. I fully support that. And
yes, yeah, I can, and I
the
could.
Statistics back them up.
Yeah, I can understand that.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm from Hull, and literally, is it a year ago? It was when I first started my career, so 2000, literally 1 or 2 years ago. It was all over in the news. Libby Squire, I think her name was, but she was a university student. She went on a night out, and then she was picked up by a car, and who, I think he raped and killed her, but I know he definitely killed her because he got convicted of it. Just like that. And that's in Hull, literally. It's 10 minutes, 15 minutes off the road, around a couple of corners. And so it's almost like people don't want to have these conversations about it because it's not on their front door.
Yes.
So these attacks are happening on their front door. They're not, do you know?
Yeah.
The way is they live a sheltered life in regards to it.
And it's terrible, and it's more likely to happen to a woman because if that had been the other way around, the chances are the man would have been able to fend it off, right?
That's it, and it's and it goes back to the men and women having chemical differences. You know, most men, I've met some women who could really take me. I'm probably win. If you're going to my pub, you'll understand full well that they are some women that can take me on. But do you know, typically a man is stronger than a woman. Do you know, it's not facts. It's not always the case. There are exceptions. There have a lot of exceptions. But biologically, men grow more muscle easier. Do you know, it's sort of ingrained in us that we have more muscle.
Yeah.
And we eat more calories. And
we're
get stronger, blah, blah,
and we're
blah.
stronger.
And so we can defend ourselves. So that's why it doesn't happen to men as much. But it shouldn't be happening to anyone at all.
Yeah.
It's sort of the point that I want to sort of take from this. I'm not like it shouldn't be happening to anyone. It's not, well, naturally it's not okay. It's not right. And it is just fucking disgusting. So it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to talk about. It's a horrible thing to think about. There are people in the world that actually would willingly, in a sound mind, do these things to another human being.
Yes.
It's just, it's not nice. No. It's horrible.
Yeah. And that sort of thing. I think the other thing is, I think blaming men doesn't help. Again, it's one of those where, because people, you know, men are going to turn around and say, well, I'm not like that. And that's not particularly helpful either. But if you say, well, yeah, that's what men are like, it's just people are gonna, why are they going to engage with you if you've already told them that they are this way? You know, why can't it be, what have we got to do to stop this happening? We know that the reason it happens primarily to women is because it's far easier for a man to do. It's far easier for a man to do, and men are more aggressive. It's inevitable that that's gonna happen. But what have we got to do? It's like, I don't know if you've seen. There's a video recently about a group of people, you know, call them woke or whatever, who went to there was a seminar about. This is in the States. I'll get you the video, actually, Adam, after, if you've not seen it. It's in the States, and it was a seminar about male suicide and why it's happening. Now, these protesters went to stop this because they deemed it part of the patriarchy because it was addressing male suicide. And there's they interview them outside, and these people are just like blinkered. There's no reasoning with them. There's no talking to them. And there's a guy there, and he's like, the guy interviews and said, why did you come down tonight? He's like, because I've had 2 of my male friends kill themselves in the past 2 years, and I'm trying to adjust and deal with that. And I came down here hoping, you know, to find out a little bit more and maybe, you know, get some answers. And what do these people, what is it they think that they're going to gain from doing these, you know, committing these acts or protests where they are simply trying to shut things down and simply trying to stop rhetoric, simply trying to stop people from talking. Seems incredibly backwards to me, like incredibly backwards.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard because all you want to do is engage with these people. You want to educate them. You want to get your point across. You want to have that discussion with them. Or some people would want to have that discussion with them, but they're just not going to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And yeah, I don't see the benefit of it at all. I think, yeah, it's a shit show, really, because these type of people, they're really so determined to get their point across. They will do it by any means, and they won't think about the consequences. They will have straight up tunnel vision, and they don't see the big picture, and it's not good. It does no one any favors. It makes no one look good.
Yeah,
because all you're doing is continue that segregation, continue with that. Developing that line between people's rights, between people's responsibilities, and it's so unorthodox. It's such an unorthodox approach to take that it just doesn't benefit anyone.
No,
so,
and I think if you are being one of those extreme people, and if I think back to the people that I've met within the LGBTQIA plus community. And, you know, the chats I've had, the fun I've had, the laughs I've had, and that there's potential that some of these people will be harmed on the back of people being so extreme, which is wrong, obviously, for those people to do it. And people shouldn't see something and assume that everyone's the same way, of course. Like, absolutely, of course. But, you know, they are indirectly... I'm sure they are indirectly contributing to that by because they're the people who are shouting the loudest, and those are the people who are making the news, and those are the reason that these videos pop up. And then the narrow-minded people do think, oh, this is the whole community, and it damages them. It really does damage them. Whereas if you're in a composed, calm manner and you wanted to talk over and debate, whatever your views, facts, whatever your views or opinions were, you'd probably be respected for sitting down, listening, and having some sort of debate, rather than turning up at functions and screaming that you want to bring down the patriarchy because like because there's this patriarchy that's that controls people. Although, you know, I don't know, you ask any of these people whether they think that they're better off than their grandparents were. Like, I think obviously we all are in so many ways, not always, of course, but like, and they say that this has gone back for centuries and centuries. And I think centuries ago, yes, there was some sort of aristocracy that was controlling people. But to say it was ingrained in society would be bullshit, because society was 90% bloody poor. And life was tough, no matter who you were. It didn't matter. Life was tough. You think about the Victorian era, I think you had to pull together. There was no patriarchy because everyone had to pull together. And if you didn't all pull together, the outcome was bleak, really bleak in those times. So I find it so incredible. Again, but it's that ignorance of... oh, you know, people are trying to... There are people that pull the strings. We know this. But to say that it's ingrained to the point where it's made for... And men are doing the controlling as well. I'm like, what? What have I got control over? You know, what have most men got control over? And then they'll say, oh, well, you know, men run all these companies. Yeah, they do. Because they're more aggressive. They don't have children. They work longer hours. And it's like... There's reasons. There's reasons, and they're there, and there's facts, but they don't want to listen to them. That's what's frustrating.
It's almost like the hard behind a veil in some sense. And if I recently just did this on one of my university assignments about leaders and what the difference between a leader and a manager is. And one of the theories is called the great man theory. So if you look at maybe pre-industrial revolution times, there was one leader, and everybody else looked towards that leader. But that was in the workplace, and how we sort of stem from that is that the definition of that change in 1920s, that is 100 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 100 years of change.
Yeah.
So there is no patriarchy anymore.
No.
Because the patriarchy began to unwind 100 years ago, slowly and slowly. And it wasn't until the 1960s, maybe the 1970s, really, that it became where it was more about the individual rather than the leader. And that was just one of my theories that I used, actually. It was one of my case studies.
Yes.
And if you look at that and you put that into a societal perspective, and who is the patriarchy? Is it the royal family?
Yeah, exactly.
The royal family does absolutely nothing for us apart from generate some tourism and constantly in the fucking news. I don't understand why, but they are. Is it the government? Is Bojo? Do you know, is he a patriarchy? Do you know?
But then again, he can't do it. He can't do it on his own. He's not allowed to.
There is no patriarchy.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
We're not here to defeat the man because there is no man to defeat.
Yeah, it's that there isn't. Yeah, there isn't, and I feel it. I do feel exactly the same way, and we don't think it's a perfect system by any means. But
absolutely not.
But do we think it's better than where we were 100 years ago? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I can wake up and do what I want. I live with my fella. He's downstairs, hopefully cleaning up. You know, hopefully, probably not. It better be. You know, could you do that 100 years ago? Could you share a house with a man?
No, you couldn't. I mean, you could. You could, but you'd be living in fear. You'd be living in constant fear, and you'd be outcast.
Could a woman walk out and go vote?
No.
100 years ago, the suffragettes sorted that out.
Yeah.
Do you know, could I walk down the street and buy what I want from the shop? No, because we had limited resources.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have. We didn't
you
have.
You can go and buy a kilo of sugar. No way.
No, there was none of that shit. But now we do. We have so much freedom in our lives that we take it for granted. Because you look at some countries in the world that don't have that freedom. Saudi Arabia, for example, very recently, women was not allowed to drive.
Yeah.
Imagine. Look at from a UK point of view. If you say to every woman, sorry, there's a law just passed, you cannot drive. I would say about 50 to 60% of drivers would be off the road.
And
that's a minimum because.
And everyone now will know a high flying businesswoman in their lives, within their family, within somebody they know, and they go on, and they're to be that woman, and in sometimes male dominated environments, is that going to be more difficult? Probably is, right? But also, most of the women I've met that are in those positions, they don't want to be talked down to, like, or argue differences. They've got there because of their strength in character, and they have gone against a lot of female traits, which are one, being more agreeable. So they are more likely to take no for an answer. That's a fact. That's a psychological trait, and there are hundreds of studies that tell you that. They do not work as long hours. That's statistical fact. Obviously, they're more likely to be looking after children. Another statistical fact. And the reason that women tend to go for that is that they care more about people, and men care more about things. And that's not all men, and that's not all women. Of course, it's a complete generalization, but it's still a fact. And that's
right.
That's why women. There's no patriarchy in the hospital, is there? Nobody complains about that because it's women that run the show in the hospitals.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do.
And what would we do about hospitals?
Yeah, exactly.
What would we do about nurses?
Exactly.
What would we do about those nurses that look after people every day?
And
imagine if the only people who's running the hospitals was the male doctors. You'd never get seen.
My mum showed Tony Blair round the New Derbyshire Children's Hospital in 1997 when he was doing his campaign tour, because she was the highest ranking nurse in uniform in that hospital. All her bosses 43 years, by the way, in the NHS. All her bosses, and the person above that have all been women. Every single one of them. Every single one has been a woman, right? So, of course, we don't talk about that. And there's nobody arguing, you know, about not having enough female bricklayers. Nobody argues that, do they? They go engineer. They'll go engineer, or they'll go, you know, university lecturer. Well, why aren't you bothered?
But it's always a male nurse.
Yeah.
It's always a male nurse.
Yeah.
Or a female doctor, or a female driving instructor.
Yeah. And like, this is the thing, it's like, the reason that you're not complaining about that is because the bricklayers here can get paid £300-400 a day in some places. They're going to make a minimum of 250 quid a day. And if you're fresh out of school or fresh out of college, that's insane money, right? That's insane money, right? It's good money for anybody, right? But nobody's saying, well, hang on, that's high wages. That is high wages. It's higher than average wages. Well, nobody's saying, because the job is horrible. It completely wrecks your body. It completely ruins your body. But nobody's saying, oh, there's not enough women bricklayers. And I'm like, well, if you want the equality thing, it's got to go both ways, right? But there's a reason.
Exactly.
There's a reason that women don't choose to do that. They just don't.
No, yeah, equality does definitely go both ways, and it's a great analogy to use, actually. Is that I've always sort of gone off the mentality is that equality does go both ways, and there's pros and cons for everyone involved.
Of course.
Do you know? And what did I watch? Oh, I'm going to hate myself for saying that, this cunt's name. Kay Hopkins, she said it.
Oh,
and
no.
It's probably one of the only very few times that I've agreed with it. I think Kay Hopkins is a cunt.
Most people do.
Most people do. She's an absolute dickhead, but she's like Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Once in a very, very blue moon,
Yeah.
she says something that it isn't popular, but it's true.
It makes sense.
And
yeah.
that some people cannot handle equality because they don't like the negative things that come with it.
Right. Yeah.
And in my head, I'm trying to think of an example to put into context. But if you look at an example, look at me on the spot, failing miserably, like my life.
You're failing miserably. While you're thinking, it's important to note though what you say there. Again, it's you hate you have a severe disliking for that woman, shall we say, as a lot of people do as a TV personality as such.
Small dislike.
But you can still accept that she'd said something you agree with.
Absolutely.
And that if just a few people, if just a subsection of a few communities could do that,
yeah,
we'd be all getting along so much better. So much better. Like
right, an example.
Go on.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, go.
America, alimony. Does it go both ways? I don't think it does. If it does, it's very rare.
Yeah.
Do you know, a male and a female get divorced? It's in some states. I don't know a whole lot about this. Don't cancel me. That male, the husband, the ex-husband, has to pay for the ex-wife's life for a number of years.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. In many cases.
Yeah.
And that's not just, and that's after having given away, half their estate.
Exactly.
Split.
You know, if you look at the statistics, when men and women get divorced, again, just going off on a tangent, the women gets everything.
Yeah.
The men gets the shitty apartment in the shit side of town.
They also,
and that's to rebuild their life. They are usually the ones that have built the wife's life up in the first place.
They are also almost hands down every time, if it goes to it, the ones who will win custody of the kids.
Yes.
And that is, this is something that's not talked about or brought up in these arguments either, because it's like, see, here's the thing though, I'm not necessarily opposed. The woman won't always be the fittest parent at all.
No, absolutely not.
And can a male parent do as good a job? I believe so. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on the whole, because of biology, do women care more about people? Yes, they do. So, and that's why it happens. That that's the bottom line. That's what happens. And also most of the men will know if they try and spend, because I've seen it happen with somebody I know in recent years in this country, and he has spent an absolute fortune. And I'm talking 6 figures, right, over the years, trying to gain custody of a child from a very unfit mother. And I'm talking 6 figures, right? And he has everything that kid would need: financial stability, his wife now, their child, obviously all well looked after. And she will just not turn up to court, and it will cost him money. And I'm like, this is so wrong. But that, again, it's something that's not really put forward. Obviously, we got awareness through, do you remember Fathers for Justice, and they dress up in the superhero,
scaling the buildings
and stuff, and we got some recognition for that, and then that kind of went away, and still not a lot has changed. But again, it's one of those things where it happens because people, the mums are more connected to their children as a rule. And it's just one of those things that, and I think I spoke about this last time we tried to do this.
Yeah.
We've almost got, certainly in our country, this equality of opportunity. So if you're a girl and you go to school and you want to be an engineer, it might be harder for you, right? It might be harder for you than a man, but the opportunity is definitely there. The opportunity is there. If they wanted to go to college and do bricklaying, the opportunity is there. All they have to do to get on that course is have the correct qualifications, right? Absolutely. And by the way, women do better at school than men do. They do. Yes. They do better than men do at school. But in Scandinavia, probably the most egalitarian society, and what that means is that they have the best equal opportunities with regards to the world of work, with allowing dads to take full paternity, and the opportunities that they have. And they did a huge study over the years. The study is done. And they were absolutely shocked with what they found. They found that it went the other way. More women were going into nursing, more men were going into engineering, even though they had better opportunities than most of the rest of the world.
Absolutely, because it's almost like it's expected of them. If, for example, when I was in year 9, I don't know if you're the same. Obviously, American viewers will be different. In year 9, you make your choices of what subjects you want to move on to GCSE level.
Year 9 is 13, 14 for anyone who doesn't 13, know. 14. Yeah.
And you make a decision about what subjects you want to study for the final 2 years in high school.
Correct. Yeah.
To gain a qualification out of it. And I remember in school, I got given a form where just a little tick box, you put your name on the top and the subjects you want to do. On my form, it did not have any creative subjects on there. And I questioned it. I was like, right, I originally, because I was going to do performing arts.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh no, that's not a form for you. So it was like, I had to almost beg and plead to get a form. I didn't end up doing it. I ended up doing PE and IT. But it was sort of one of the things that you pushed in a certain direction. You pushed into the more physical, like, there was selling PE to me like no tomorrow. But I didn't really want to do it. I just started choosing to shut them off. And in all fairness, I hated it. Naturally, I'm a gay man in a fucking football team. Christ. Talk about stereotypes.
Hit the ball, you puff.
Oh, fuck off. They just put me in a back left defence. But it was just one of the things that you was expected to go into a certain direction, and PE and IT were considered the subject for boys.
Yeah.
Get my quotes up.
Yeah.
Looking back, I should have challenged it more, or I wish I did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mind PE actually. You know, I got some good mates, and in all fairness, I lost loads of work because of all the cross country we had to do. But IT, for example, I got nothing out of that. I mean, it was just shit.
Yeah.
And I wish I chose more subjects that were more me, for example.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying performing arts is merely me. I can't sing, I can't act, I can't dance. But whenever somebody tells me, "Oh, you can't do this," you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, fuck, doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you telling me what I can't do?
So,
and hopefully, I don't know much about school these days. Naturally, I'm 27. We're talking 11 years ago since I left. That it's all changed.
Yes.
But now I've just finished a business degree, or hopefully, if I pass, I'm going into teaching in September. And from what I've seen, it is a male-dominated subject. You do get the odd female in there, but if I'm using the class that I'm in, typically females are the dropouts because they find out the subject's not for them.
Yes.
The economic side of things, men do a whole lot better, but in the human resource subjects, the girls in my class have done a lot better than the men.
Yeah.
And it is one of the things, one of them social norms that women care more about people, men care more about things. Other things about things, and I don't want to say facts because women also care about facts, but say other things.
It's true.
It is. No, you're right, and you've hit the nail on the head with that. And it is real life case throughout my degree. So yeah. That
completely. What's it? Whereas obviously, but we're making strides to make sure, and we have done over the years in the Western world, and this was the point, Scandinavia exactly, where nobody would argue that women shouldn't have, or men shouldn't have, those opportunities to do it if that's what they want to do. But
that's it. And I remember, sorry, I keep on talking about stories, don't I? But I remember one of my jobs, when I did my apprenticeship, I went for an apprenticeship with Adam. Yeah. One of my roles was just sourcing companies, and would try and get an apprenticeship place with them. And there was it was a software engineering company, and they wanted an apprentice to build up and take on after the apprenticeship and sort of build up a career with them. And I remember he came in, and I had a little talk with him. We had a little meeting, and it was like, and I asked him, how would you feel about a female apprentice? And he was like, we welcome it, because we have absolutely no females in our office whatsoever, apart from the HR woman. He said, you can understand why, because whenever he puts a job advert out there, it's only men that apply.
Yeah.
So how do you combat that though? Well, like, how do you...
I'm at the point where I just feel like, obviously there are countries that lag way behind.
Oh, absolutely.
But as long as the opportunity's there, it is what it is. You can't force people against their natural wills and feelings. But it just blows my mind when people people argue that they also want not just equality of opportunity, they want equality of outcome. They want the outcomes to be exactly the same, and it's just not possible. It's not possible because we are different, whether we like it or not. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, we're different. I don't think that's a
men and women thing, though. I don't think the equality of the outcome is even just it's not a men and women thing. I think that's just an everyone thing. Yes, there is a lot of success out there, and there is enough success to be shared around everyone, but at different levels. Everybody cannot be a high flyer. Everybody cannot climb to the top of the corporate ladder.
It takes a certain person to do that.
That's it, and that's not just a men or women.
Yeah, that's right. It goes way beyond that as well. Yeah,
it's if you're looking at, there's only one person at the top of each company. Not everyone can be at that position, no matter how hard you work, no matter what social norms you could break to get there.
Also, who wants to do that? Who wants to commit? They're saying, we want more women CEOs in the top FTSE. Right, okay. So one of the richest people in this country, she's a CEO of Bet365, right? She's recent years, she's started making the rich list, right? Who wants to do that? Who wants to put 80 hours a week every week, take very, very little time off, sleep very little, spend time with friends, family, doing other things, very little, on almost one thing and one goal to achieve? Because that's what you have to do to get to be CEO of one of these top FTSE 100 companies, that you have to do it. You have to dedicate your life to it. So,
Absolutely.
you know, yes, will you make a lot of money? Yes. These people that are making that kind of money don't even really get real time to enjoy it until years later down the line, because their job is insane. Their job is absolutely insane. People like to believe that these people are just in their big office at the top of Canary Wharf in a really high building with their feet on the desk.
Yeah. But they're not.
No, because the shareholders would not be very happy. And that's whether people like it or not, that's the way the world works, right? And if you want to believe that that's a favorable way of living, it may be to you, and some people want to do that. But it just so happens that men want to do that a bit more than women do. And does that mean to me, it doesn't even seem like a sensible thing to be doing?
I'm sorry, like going off on another tangent, but
we can go anywhere on this podcast.
Oh, Betty. If I was 75 years old and the only thing I had to look back on in my life was that I made a CEO of a company, I'd be like, oh well, I've had a shit life then. Do you know?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a sad lonely little millennial saying things like this. Do you know? But I don't live to work.
No.
To some extent, I'm where I have goals in mind with what I want to do for my employment. You know, obviously I've worked hard to finish my degree to get into my BGCE, and then eventually, hopefully, as long as I don't twat a kid, I can
don't hit a child.
Go on.
Advice. Good advice from somebody that doesn't know anything. From somebody that doesn't know anything about teaching. Don't hit the kid.
Well, just don't get caught doing it.
You're gonna get cancelled before you even start.
If anybody from like old college is like watching this, I am not going to hit you. I promise. If you're a teacher, I am talking out my ass. Don't cancel me, please. Quick for the finance.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Yes, no children were harmed in the making of this podcast. But yeah, so if you look at things like, I have goals, but if you'd have said to me, oh yeah, with these goals you need to work 8 hours a week, devote your weekends to it, I'd be like, fuck off, no. It's not that. Do you know, I finish work at a certain time, I go home. And even now, I work in a pub. And at my designated time, I'm like, bye.
Bye. Yeah, exactly.
Halfway to my car.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know, and because the point of the factor is, once I've done my work, I go home. And then I chill, and then I go back the next day. There have been times where, obviously, I've been on the other side of the coin where I've been so determined to get that promotion. And I remember doing it, and I worked so hard, so many extra hours, and it killed me. Yeah. And looking back, it was like, for what? I got 50p extra an hour. So 50p.
Let's look at it like this. Let's say you become the CEO in the States of the biggest air conditioning company in the country, right? Maybe the world, let's say.
Okay.
Right. And there's other ones. There's several other ones that'd be in that place if that company wasn't there, right? You're going to go on your deathbed and going, oh, I'm so glad I kept those people at 21 degrees instead of 25 degrees and made their lives a little bit more comfortable. Because probably not, you know? If I was my mum, am I going to be on my deathbed thinking, remember all those kids that we helped? You know, remember all those kids and family members that we helped? Do you know, and it's like
you look at you,
and it's like mum doesn't want, when we've been doing this clapping thing for COVID, people were doing this clapping thing for COVID, mum's never wanted a clap. She's never asked for a pat on the back or anything like that ever.
Yeah,
she's wanted to be more respected by the government, but
who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. But there's something that you can get. I mean, it's not a job I could do, but
no, absolutely
no. But there's something you can get back from that, and again, it's something that, because women are more caring as a whole, that they aim for, and for anybody to, it's crazy to me that people would argue that, one, it's different because that's fact. two, that there's something wrong with that as well. That women just want to be that way and men want to be that way. And of course, there is exceptions to the rule, and we should be open to people being exceptions to the rule. But on the whole, this is what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just got to, I think the most important thing is to know is that the opportunities are there. You know, they are, for every stereotype, there is exceptions to the rule. And the opportunities are there for people to do that. And I think that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if a woman wants to go into bricklaying, all she has to do is do a course.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to jump through hoops.
Yeah.
All she has to do is jump through a course. I'm not saying it's going to be particularly easy to find employment after that, because I'm not in her shoes.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know what companies are going to react to that.
Well,
but I would imagine
carry on.
She would find she's qualified.
Yeah. I know. Well, one, even if it was looked down on being a woman in it, they're crying out for them anyway. But two, I'm pretty sure there'd be plenty of firms to, brag.
Absolutely.
They had,
can you imagine how?
Getting in the. You imagine it being in the paper for that. Your company is employed a. Would there be obstacles? Yes. Yeah. Are people deliberately putting these in the way? No. There's no patriarchy trying to stop women from being bricklayers. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Just the same way they're not doing it to engineers. Is it easy for them? No, because it's against the norm, right? So it's things that are against the norm are never easy. And of course, anybody from whether it's a sexual preference minority group or any kind of racial or ethnical minority group will be able to tell you that because it's not the average person. Of course, those things are difficult. But impossible is a completely different thing, and that's what I think is completely overlooked. But
a lot of people need to remind themselves that 50 years ago, these opportunities weren't present.
Yes,
men were told to go work in a factory, women were told to stay at home.
Exactly,
and we have to be grateful for the opportunities that we have, because there are a lot of countries and a lot of people that unfortunately do not have these opportunities.
Exactly.
So whilst it's all fun and dandy, some people say, oh, but women can do this. Yeah, women can absolutely do that. But why are you not doing it then? If you're a woman and you're saying that, why haven't you done it if you wanted to do it?
Because of the systemic patriarchy of men keeping all the men working to keep everyone down. Adam.
Yeah, allegedly.
Adam,
allegedly.
I've loved chatting to you. We're out of time. You're going to be streaming soon. That link will be in the description as soon as he is up and running. So give him a check him out. He is very much like me. He sits on the fence and doesn't say what he's thinking. Adam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back. In fact, we can have you back talking about your successes. One of your stream and two of your. I'd be interested to talk about your path into teaching as well. I think that would be something that'd be really interesting to hear about, actually, because it's something that fascinates me. So, Adam, thank you very much.
You said the word. No problem. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for listening to the Joe Tendo podcast. I will see you next time. Goodbye.